This project didn't begin with typography, it began with my grandmother. She has Parkinson's disease. Gradually, the illness took from her the ability to hold words. I watched language leave her slowly, like a tide going out. Around the same time, I was reading Flowers for Algernon, a novel told entirely through diary entries, where the protagonist's intelligence rises and unfolds. The writing itself deteriorates with him. For my first project, I tried to translate those final diary entries. Charlie was writing through the experience of losing his mind, and I was reading Charlie through the experience of losing her mind. Walter Benjamin wrote that translation is not a transparent transfer of meaning. The original passes through a new body, and that body leaves its mark. Roland Barthes said, every reading is a projection. The reader's subjectivity is not a distortion of the text, it's the condition of reading. In the next project, I tried to approach this systematically. One fixed text, 4 typographic parameters, leading, tracking, font size, inclination, all values in multiples of 5, introduced sequentially across 100 pages. The question was, does the reader feel the shift in cognitive state as the parameters change? They did, but everyone felt something different. So I stopped trying to analyze other people's responses before I had understood my own. I made a second publication. Each page a record of my own reading, the typography shifting with my thinking, governed not by a rule, but by experience. That made me realize, two people can read the same sentence and inhabit completely different emotional spaces. The text doesn't change, but the reader does. The question is what happens in the gap between the mark on a page and the person who encounters it. Michael Rowe argues that treatment is itself a text, not decoration, not style. A language as complex as the word it shapes, our what, is a how. Rudolf Arheim showed that visual form carries expressive weight before we consciously process it. A rising line and a falling line are not emotionally equivalent. Ramachandra's Bourbaki effect proves this isn't metaphor, it's measurable. 95% of people across languages map the same abstract shape to the same word. Current type is an online game. You move letters across a screen, adjusting the space between them, and the system scores you on how correct your spacing is. There is a right answer. The game knows what it is. Your job is to find it. David Carson spent 4 years proving there isn't. His layouts in Raygun were deliberately legible. They still communicated through weight, tension, rhythm. He didn't mistake the legibility for communication. Carson decided what type should feel like. But what if that decision belongs to the reader? If every reader's experience is shaped by their own emotional history, I wanted to find a way to make that visible. That curiosity led me to build a system where users translate their own feeling into letter forms. But what feeling? A human life moves through countless emotions, from the very beginning to the very end. An early version simply invited users to interpret its 8 words, but something was missing. I kept asking myself, when someone shapes the word born, where does that understanding actually come from? Shi Tieshen, a Chinese writer, described this precisely. He wrote, I was born in 1951, but for me, 1951 came after 1955. One day in 1955, I remember the characters on the calendar were printed in green. Time for me began that weekend. With this, I gave the website a narrative. These 8 words are woven into a single monologue, a shape that most lives follow. You enter birthday, and your life begins. When you finish, your monologue becomes a poster, a record of how you felt each word, and those records accumulate in a collective archive where your version sits alongside everybody else. That archive is the core of the project, because the real question was never just personal. Is the felt response to type individual, or is there a shared typographic language operating beneath conscious reading?